You guys ever had an issue that you thought was little and then it exploded? So this video is gonna be a warning video to everybody to never put polyurethane bushings in your Corvette. Let me show you why. So this is where I'm at. Pretty much the entirety of this rear suspension has been removed. Now you might be thinking, why? Well, I'll show you why. In the beginning, I was going to replace the strut rod bushings. They're basically a bar that goes from the differential out to the trailing arm. And they control the way the tire sits. If you remember in the earlier videos, the tires were sitting all crooked, and I was like, oh, that's easy. That's just the strut rod bushings. So in the past, the previous owner had replaced the strut rod bushings with polyurethane ones. And here is what came out of the car. So if you look at this, you see there's really no bushing left at all. And you can see on this side what is left. So this is what is left of the polyurethane bushing. And it's literally crumbly dust. That's it. So I was like, that's easy. I have these strut rods here. We can put new ones in. I have stock ones. It'll be cheap. You know, I'll buy the new strut rod bushings, press them in, boom, boom, we're done. But it escalated. So I can't show you this because they no longer exist, but the bushings that went in between the leaf spring and the trailing arm were completely gone. Like, there wasn't even powder left. It was metal on metal the whole way through. And I was like, okay, I'll do those two. That's easy. And then it got even worse. It got worse once I started to look up here at the trailing arms sitting in the trailing arm pocket. Here is the best view that I can show you guys. So this is, or was, a polyurethane trailing arm bushing, and they're about that thick on each side. But there's no bushing left. They're completely gone. And I know someone's been in here because obviously these cars didn't come with poly bushings, but you can tell that the bolt that was in here was a newer bolt. You see it right here. That's a newer cotter pin, and then they reused the shims. But here's the thing, because the previous owner decided it was going to upgrade their car with poly everything, I have to redo all of it. So I have to redo the bushings in the trailing arms, I have to redo the bushings in the leaf spring, the bushings in the strut rods, but also I have to realign it, and I have to bleed the brakes again. So if the guy that had owned it, who knows how many previous owners before, had decided just to put rubber in, it would be all perfect and fine and there'd be no problems. But this is the main reason why you don't want to do poly bushings. This is the bushing. That's what's left of the bushing. All in there, it's just powdered. And there's literally a pile of bushing. That's bushing, all in there. So yeah, don't do polyurethane bushings. It's just not a good idea. The thing is, I know this car has been sitting a long time, and you would think a sitting car would be less prone to a bushing falling apart than one being driven. But in reality, I've seen both. I've seen where it's driven a lot and they fall apart, and it's driven a little and then they fall apart. So what can you do? But it gets worse. So I had a set of suspension come in off of a parts car. Anyway, it's gonna be for sale, but I noticed something interesting on it. If you look at it, the bushings on these adjustable strut rods are completely gone. And of course, they were the cheap poly adjustable ones, and they're totally gone. But it gets worse. I had a customer come in, and of course he had the same problem. And you look at these, they're actually quite new. Like, they're not even rusty. They haven't been in the car that long. But here's the poly bushing that was supposed to be in it, and they're just completely destroyed. These ones aren't obviously as bad because they're not crumbling, but at the same time they're also missing. So Here's kind of what the poly bushings look like before they fall apart, but they just, I don't know what it is. It's cheap Chinese product, I don't know, but if you look down inside, it's just gone, man. And it's not worth your time to do it, you know, every year when you could just put in rubber ones and be done. So yeah, those are gonna get recycled. So there you go, note to self. Don't put poly bushings in your Corvette. It's really not worth it. Unless you really like replacing bushings every year, just don't do it. All right, so here's the setup. Basically, what I did, since I still have the arm basically all assembled, usually you would do this with maybe a bare arm or one without the rotor. I lifted up with an old rotor to make it as even as I could. I have the bend of the rotor downward like that, the bend of the trailing arm downward, and then basically it's just a little mini press, this tool. So you're going to close the gap between here and here, here and here, and then once that's all together, you're going to take this big punch, and what you're going to do is you're going to smash into that piece that goes in the middle and make it look like the other side. And I forgot the washer. We should probably put the washer in there. All right, and there you go. If you look down in there, the little cylinder is far enough up that you can take this, smash it apart. It should be good to go. Well, that didn't do anything. Let's try it again. That's better. A couple more whacks just for fun. There you go. It's all smashed, and now it will never come out, and it will last longer than poly. All right, it's been a minute and a really long day, and guess what? Like 4 hours later, I'm still in the same spot where I was. So I get these brand new bushings popped in, and then I'm like, okay, I have the arms off. Let's figure out the parking brake, because, you know, when I convert it to being a manual, that's something you're gonna want. And I noticed the parking brake cables in this car are completely gone. And a couple things that I found was the passenger side trailing arm actually has two brackets. 1, 2, and they're both broken. And it's like, well, I might be able to weld that, but I'd have to buy brackets. But it gets worse. So I went to go put on the actual parking brake hardware, and two problems. So if you notice in the beginning of the video, I still have the rotors on these, and so I popped the rotors off, just let's see what's going on. And we have messed up brake shields. So there's a giant hole in this one, and this one over here is missing this whole section right here that holds the parking brake lever. I have all new parking brake stuff, but here's the thing. I can't install any of it on either of these because with the holes, none of the hardware will stay in. So in order to replace this shield, which has the hole, I have to take it all the way apart. And if I take it all the way apart, then I have to basically, you don't have to rebuild them, but resetting, you know, dirty, gross bearings, you're already there. This is like step one, put the parking brake shield on and then assemble everything else to it. So going in circles, getting other arms, trying to figure out you know, can I use the brackets from this one? Can I use the shield for that one? And just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And finally I was like, you know what, that's way too much work. Let's see what else I got. So I came up with these trailing arms, and here's the thing. They actually came from the same car that the transmission came from. It's that same 77. The only issue I see with them is a wheel stud is broken on each one, but that's it. That's easy fix. So here's the reason why I'm going to use these. One, I spun them by hand. They spin just fine. The bearings sound fine. They're not rusty. All the brackets are there. All the brackets are not broken off. And I can pull these parking brake levers while I spin it, and the parking brake is all complete inside, and it stops the rotor from moving. So don't have to deal with the parking brake. And the craziest thing about all of this is that if you look at this arm, you'll see I can move this. Somebody put new bushings in this at one point. They didn't crimp them down, but they're definitely not bushings from 1977. That's certainly true. So, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and just use these. They're the same shape as the other ones. They just need so much less work. And I have the tool to crimp down these trailing arm bushings, and we should be good to go. So anyway, it's a workaround, but this car is like a freaking onion. Everything I touch, something else and something else and something else and something else is wrong with it, and just never ends. So it has to stop somewhere. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna put these ones in it. They're just as good as those ones, except for they have the parking brakes, they have all the brackets and crap like that. And you know, I could actually sell those and make some money back. So we're gonna do that. All right, the trailing arm rear suspension fiasco has come to an end. There's the originals, here are the good used ones. So again, put a new stud, now I have 5 studs, check the parking brake. It now has parking brake hardware and new springs top and bottom, whereas those had neither. It has a good brake dust shield that actually will hold the parking brake hardware in, so we can use that. The bearing on it is good. It is rust free, it is straight. It also has all the appropriate brackets for the parking brake and for the brake line itself. And we now have good bushings inside the trailing arm. That's a lot of things. That's a lot of things that are almost never wrong, that were wrong on that set. And of course I ruined a perfectly good brand new set of trailing arm bushings, but luckily I got lucky, I guess, that these ones were actually been replaced before and were in good shape, just needed the extra washers and then the installation. So here on this side, same kind of thing, rotor all cleaned up. It'll go back together just fine, and hopefully soon we'll have a car on all 4 wheels again. But like I said before, please don't put poly bushings in your Corvette. For all the mechanics out there, we'll thank you later. Just don't do it.